Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about the big time games. Texas heads up to Ohio State, LSU heads over to the other Death Valley, and Notre Dame heads down to Coral Gables to take on Miami. They're going to be incredible. There's no doubt about that. Cannot wait for those ones to get underway, but let's not forget about the rest of the games going on this weekend. We have some incredible, let's say, tier 2 games, if you will, this upcoming weekend, and it's going to be really, really fun to watch what happens in these games, and let's go ahead and jump into them. Let's start with one that's going to go on in Atlanta. Very much hate that this is a neutral site game, but it is what it is. Syracuse, quote-unquote, at Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by about 13.5 in this game, over-under at 47.5. This one's going to kick off right in line with Ohio State, Texas, so you might want a second TV to make sure you get this one in. Some players to watch, as I see it. Deshaun Bishop for Tennessee is shining in fall camp. He is going to be the lead running back. I think Peyton Lewis is going to factor in plenty in that run game, but definitely someone to watch. On the defensive side for Syracuse, Demetrius Samuel is a very talented freshman that has found his way onto the field. I think he's going to be a big-time player. We'll see how he holds up in his very first game of action in the college level. Incredible player, and overall, it's a very interesting game. You have two quarterbacks that came in the spring portal window that won the job over guys that were there prior. It is going to be really interesting how quickly these guys can get their feet under them and how quickly they can get these offenses rolling, because I think both these teams have the ability to really make something happen in their conference, whether it's Tennessee finding this offense, Joey Aguilar playing really good football and them finding their way to the SEC championship or at least in the CFP picture, or Syracuse putting it together for a second year in a row with Steve Angeli coming in from Notre Dame, and you put something together that's another special season for Fran Brown, and maybe you're a 10-win team and on your way to the CFP at the end of the year, continuing to take steps forward. But for Tennessee, my big-time question is around the wide receiver room. I think the defense did lose some big-time pieces, but I'm not really going to worry about the defense for a number of different reasons. I think they're going to be more than fine on that side of the ball. Obviously, some relative worries, but when you have Joshua Josephs, when you have Arian Carter, I'm not going to worry too much. But at the end of the day, for the wide receiver room, Mike Matthews, does he step up in a big way? He almost has to. I think there are a number of talented guys, Chris Brazzell being one of them, but Mike Matthews is the difference maker in this group to me. He is the guy that can turn their offense from, good enough, winning games, keeping their defense in it, to special, to 2022 levels, to playing for a possible CFP spot. And then Boo Carter has gotten the idea that maybe he's playing both ways. I don't know if that's going to happen after the craziness that's happened in the offseason, but at the end of the day, I tend to believe he's a really special DB. Let's just play DB, but we'll see how that factors in. Maybe he's a player that we see in this game at the wide receiver position. Regardless, Tennessee needs someone to step up in that case. For Syracuse, they have a number of guys on the outside as well. They brought in Jonte Cook late on in the process from Texas by way of Washington, I suppose. Very talented kid, a 5-star coming out of high school that I think can be a huge player for this team. Justice Ross Simmons, another player that's coming back for them, going to be probably their wide receiver 1 and a huge player for this team. I think they're a team that always finds, or at least under Fran Brown last year, found a way to put it together. It wasn't a perfectly talented team. They didn't put everything together the way that they wanted to, and they lost some big-time players. Lost Murad Watson to Texas, the freshman All-American. Obviously lost Kyle McCord to the next level. Lost Jackson Meeks as well. A number of players walking out of this team. It's going to be relatively hard for them to find the same level, but frankly, I'm past doubting Fran Brown. I think he's going to have this team at least ready to play, and they will give them a fight. I think Tennessee almost has to win this one. Not necessarily like Josh Heupel is fired. In fact, he just signed an extension, so he's comfortable there for a while. I think that's a great decision by Tennessee, but I do think they need to win this one. I think they will win this one. I got Tennessee winning this one 31-17. I think they have enough. I don't think it's going to be a perfect game. I think there's going to be some Joey Aguilar mistakes. I also think there's going to be one or two big-time Joey Aguilar plays where you're thinking, Nico probably would have put that ball in his pocket, and I think Tennessee fans are going to be excited about that prospect, and we'll see what happens moving forward. Now we move down to Tallahassee, Florida. Alabama at Florida State. 13.5 is the line in favor of Alabama. 50.5 is the over-under. This one's kicking off at 3:30. Kind of a I don't want to say barren because any college football is great college football, but if you got something to do on Saturday, maybe 3:30 is around the time to do it because you got incredible games at noon and 7:30. But regardless of that, I think there's two big time players to watch on both sides of the or on offense for both teams. Richard Young is going to take over probably the running back one role around Alabama, especially with Jamarian Miller going out for at least 4 or 5 weeks. We'll see what happens. Sounds like he'll be ready for the Georgia game, but Richard Young has to step up big, as well as Daniel Hill in this game. And then Jayvan Boggs, a freshman wide receiver for Florida State, seems like he's going to be the starter, and it's a special athlete. There's no two ways about that. He is absolutely someone that could totally change this game and maybe give Florida State a more of a shot than people think. Oh, excuse me, a little bit early there, but got a little sneak peek of my pick. But at the end of the day, Florida State's got to start fast. Tommy Castellanos comes in and he has talked quite a bit about this upcoming matchup and said that he is going to get a big-time win for Florida State. Ty Simpson comes in on the other side with a elite wide receiver core around him, one of the best offensive lines in the country in front of him, and they go up against a Gus Malzahn-led offense that has given Alabama a little bit of trouble. Obviously, an entirely different staff and an entirely different situation, but it would be a little bit of a flashback and a bad flashback for some Alabama fans out there if he was able to pull it off. Deuce Robinson is an interesting player to watch for FSU on the outside as well. Very big, very physical, can kind of match up physically with these Alabama DBs where not a lot of these FSU players are really wide receivers in general in college football can. So it's going to be a really tough fight. Alabama's got to find a way to do this one, and they got to do it very effectively. I think it's a very interesting way both these fan bases are walking into the season where Alabama wants to see their team roll over Florida State. They want to see Ty Simpson throw for 300 yards, the running game look really good, the defense fly all over the place and make big play after big play, and them come out with a big-time win. Florida State wants to see their team keep their head above water, wants to see their team at least hold their own for, let's say, a half of this game, make this thing a little bit interesting, and at the very least show signs of growth. I think you can find the middle ground in that, but at the end of the day, I think this Bama defense is going to be an absolute nightmare for Tommy Castellanos. I think he didn't even need to say anything before this game for them to be a nightmare, but he decided to say something anyway, and they're going to be equally as much a nightmare this time. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. I'm going to take Alabama 41-20. I think this Alabama team is going to be really good this year. I think they make a statement in week one, and I think Florida State, you feel better about where you were at the end of than where you feel better about where you are now than where you were at the end of the year, but you don't feel great at the end of this one if you're a Florida State fan. Utah at UCLA, kind of an underrated matchup this upcoming weekend because it's a very, very interesting one. You got two transfer quarterbacks on both sides, as you can imagine in the world of college football we live in today. You got Devin Dampier on one side, you got Nico Iamaleava on one side, and two new offensive coordinators on both sides as well. Jason Beck at Utah, Tino Sunseri at UCLA, two very, very talented play callers, very interesting guys that I tend to believe are going to be head coaches at some point in their future. But a couple of players to watch. Wayshawn Parker, the running back for Utah, coming over from Washington State, very talented kid, someone that really does need to be utilized a huge amount for Utah to be as successful as they can be. The run game's got to be very successful in there as well. And then Quasi Gilmore on the other side for UCLA has kind of been the standout wide receiver thus far. He's going to have to make big-time plays in this one if UCLA is going to make a big-time difference, because the way that I look at it is UCLA is going to have to make huge plays down the field if they're going to win this game. If you allow Utah to get this run game going behind one of the best offensive lines in the entire country, you're in for a long day. I can almost promise you that. It is going to be really, really tough to get all the things that you want out of this team, or all the things you want out of this matchup from UCLA if they allow Utah to get a run game going, because I can promise you, if you do, Devin Dampier is going to make you pay down the field. He's a very, very talented deep ball thrower. If you allow him to get a little bit of space, he's going to make you hurt, whether it's with his arm or his legs. But UCLA's got to get out in front for Utah. I think it's just about avoiding mistakes. I think it's about showing that you're still the Utah that everyone remembers when, Cam Rising was leading the way and not being as confusing as can be on the injury reports. I think the reality is you're in a position where you want to go in here and just win this game. Win this game relatively comfortably. It doesn't have to be all that perfect. A lot of moving parts for Utah, but at the end of the day, They want to make sure that that Utah Utes team is still in there. I very much believe it still is. I think Utah wins this one 30-17. I think Nico Iamaleava makes a couple of nice plays. I think the back end for Utah is really, really talented. And I think they're going to make a couple of plays that will make some Tennessee fans smile during this one as they're watching it, hopefully after they've gotten a win against Syracuse. But at the end of the day, this one's going to go on at 11 p.m. I think it's going to be worth staying up for just to see what these quarterbacks and what these offensive coordinators can do. But I'm going to take Utah to win this one at least relatively comfortably. Virginia Tech, and then again, quote-unquote, at South Carolina in Mercedes-Benz, about 15 minutes down the road from me. Again, very much hate it, but Sunday at 3 p.m., going to be a huge one. Two of my favorite quarterbacks in the entire country. Kyron Drones on one side for Virginia Tech. Lenora Sellers, probably the best athlete in the entire country, bar none, on the other side for South Carolina. Players to watch in this one. Terrion Stewart is a running back for Virginia Tech that came over from Bowling Green. This kid's a freak. If you look at him on the football field, you will tell immediately who I'm talking about. He's a bowling ball. He is an outright bowling ball. I think he stands at like 5'10", maybe 5'11", about 235 pounds. He is going to be a force in the run game for Virginia Tech. I don't care if you're playing the ACC, the SEC, or the NFL. You are going to have a tough time taking this kid down. Brian Thomas Jr. on the other side for South Carolina. They lost Kyle Kennard on the other side away from Dylan Edwards. The big thing about this defense, and the thing that can make this defense special, is can they not have guys double teaming Dylan Stewart? If you can allow Dylan Stewart to get some of those one-on-ones that he does so well against, you're going to be really successful, and Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be the guy that kind of has to open that door for him. It's going to be really fun to watch those two guys go at it, but the quarterback is going to be where everyone's eyes are, at least to start this game. Special athletes on both sides of the ball. There will be a lot of plays made with their legs, whether that's on script or off script. These guys will make big-time plays with their legs, and I think this one's going to be really interesting. South Carolina replaces quite a bit on the defensive side of the ball. Tons of NFL talent still in that group, I promise you that, but definitely some big-time players. Nick Eamon-Warry, obviously we talked about Kyle Kennard, Demetrius Knight Jr. is out the door. A lot of guys that are going to be big-time players both on and off the field for them last year that have now found their way to the NFL. It'd be really interesting to see what South Carolina can do, and especially in that front seven. I think the talent is off the charts. Is the experience and the comfort in that defense where it needs to be going into this game? Because Virginia Tech can run the football. They're going to have the ability to win this one. They can shorten this game. They can make things interesting, and then it's one big play by Kyron Drones that makes the difference. But for South Carolina, kind of the same thing that we just talked about when we were talking about now I'm blanking on who we were talking about. Tennessee, excuse me. Tennessee has to find their wide receiver one. I think South Carolina does as well. I love Nick Harbor. I think he's uniquely talented, one of the best athletes in the country, right along with Lenora Sellers. But he is your wide receiver one. Can he elevate his game? Because he definitely has to. And he's fully focused on football, was a track and football athlete, now is fully just football. And he's going to be a really, really good player. Can he put it together in week one? Mazeo Bennett, can he build off a great freshman year? Who is that guy that Lenora Sellers can go to consistently in the pass game? They seem to feel really confident about this group. Does that kind of come to fruition on Sunday, or does it fall a little bit flat? I think Virginia Tech, if they pull off this upset, it will be one of the bigger narrative turns around any single team that you've seen in a while. South Carolina has all the juice in the world. People are picking them to go to the CFP, everything in between. If Virginia Tech wins this one, Virginia Tech is the team that could go to the CFP, and South Carolina is the team that might just disappoint this year, but I just don't see it happening. I think South Carolina has a little bit too much firepower. I don't think there's a defense in the country that really has a good answer for Lenora Sellers. Some have better answers, but not necessarily a great one. I think Virginia Tech's going to be a little bit out-athleted in this game. I don't think it'll be all that pretty at times for South Carolina, particularly passing the ball, but I think they're going to find a way to win this one. I think they win this one 30-20 over Virginia Tech. Then we got the cap of the weekend on Monday night at 8 p.m. TCU at North Carolina. Bill Belichick is a college football head coach. That is almost a reality, which is very, very weird. But at the end of the day, it's going to be really awesome to watch this one unfold. A couple of players to watch are two wide receivers in this game. Jordan Dwyer over at TCU comes down from Idaho, really talented kid at the FCS level, and I think he's not going to miss a beat. I think there's definitely a number of things that he's going to have to get more comfortable with, mainly how hard he's about to be hit. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to be more than fine. Very, very confident route runner, can be a threat downfield. I think he's going to be a huge player for this TCU team, especially with Eric McAllister taking up quite a bit of attention on the other side of the field. And then Kobe Paysour for UNC is a very, very big time player for them. Jordan Shipp hasn't quite hit the stride that you need him to. I think Kobe Paysour can really kind of pick up the slack, as it were. I think there's a number of things that UNC have to do very well in this game to win it. I think hitting a couple of big time plays to Kobe Paysour or to Jordan Shipp is probably going to be the way that they're going to get after this. Who's going to start a quarterback for North Carolina? I believe it is going to be Gio Lopez. I don't think there is much of a question there, but it doesn't feel like a quarterback position that is locked down by any means. I think there's a number of things that are going to happen throughout the season. I think Bryce Baker is the guy that they want in that position long term, and maybe if things don't go right in this game, we see Bryce Baker a little bit earlier than we're expecting. But regardless, they got to make sure that they make big-time plays. You have to assume the defense is going to get better for UNC with the Belichicks coming in there and hopefully fixing a couple of things. But overall, UNC has a schedule that sets up incredibly well. If they win this game, they can make a CFP run. As crazy as that sounds, they have a schedule that sets up a little bit like, I don't want to, call out Indiana, but in the vein of, a schedule that sets up for you to make a CFP run. That's what North Carolina has, especially if they win this matchup. TCU, if they were able to win this one, you're off running and you absolutely have the ability to win the Big 12. But if you lose this one, then you're playing from behind, and then you have to maybe run the table, lose one in the Big 12 to really have a shot at the CFP at the end of the day. It's going to be a really interesting watch. I don't know what to expect from this North Carolina team. I relatively know what to expect from TCU, but Sonny Dykes always has a couple of different things up his sleeve. It's going to be much like that TCU-Colorado game from a couple of years ago. A lot of energy around one team, a lot of juice, and I don't think it's going to go the same way, though. I do think TCU wins this one 34-21. I think Josh Hoover's too much. I think he's a really, really good football player, probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the entire country, and I just don't think Bill Belichick's going to have this thing where he wants it in week one. I think they're going to be a weird team this year, at the very least. I don't necessarily feel super highly about North Carolina, so I'll go with TCU in this one. I think it's going to be a very fun game, but I think Josh Hoover is too much, and I think the Horned Frogs get that one relatively comfortably over Bill Belichick and North Carolina. These are really, really fun games. I think in any other week, or especially any other week one, we'd be looking at a lot of these games as the marquee matchup, whether it's Syracuse, Tennessee, or Alabama, Florida State. In past years, that has been the marquee matchup in a number of years, but those three games up top are just different. So I had to make sure we got to those, made sure we covered those, and next, we got a number of other games. We got great games happening tomorrow and Friday that we got to break down. Boise State, South Florida, Nebraska, Cincinnati, Auburn, Baylor, Georgia Tech, Colorado, and a couple of more right after this, so stick with us.